Normally, if I was doing a video, this is where I'd do like the intro, like, hey guys, Daniel James here. And today we're going to be taking a look at Audio Imperia's new orchestral library, Jaeger. Now, Jaeger, for those who are unaware already, is Audio Imperia's new library, which covers orchestral instruments, but at the same time, it covers percussion, sound design, and it also has what I consider the barist setting bar setter of a voice library I've ever heard. Anyway, so what I've done is I've written a short track using the library. And what we're going to do is we're going to listen to that first, and then we're going to go over the track and talking about all the different bits I used of the library in the track and, you know, why I used it and how I used it. So without further ado, let's take a little listen. Here we go. So there was the short track. As you can hear, I went for the usual large epic thing there. Sorry, I had to restart it. I forgot that Cubase likes to solo instruments every now and again. So yeah, as I mentioned at the beginning, Jaeger covers the entire orchestra. Well, it doesn't cover the entire orchestra. It forgets woodwinds, but in this day and age in epic music, who uses woodwinds anymore? I kid. So let's take a look. So it comes in... here we go. So we got the strings. So we have 16 violins, 10 violas, 6 cellos. I was going to say clarinets because it's CL, but and 4 double basses. Now the library is interesting because a lot of libraries these days tend to go for the hyper realistic, very what's the word? It's like verby. It goes for a very verby kind of approach, whereas Audio Imperia kind of went for in the other direction. They went for like a smaller section that's a lot more focused. So this is just the strings. And if I turn off my reverb, I always put my own reverb on, and it's worth mentioning up front here that the whenever I show a library, I show it in context of how I would use it in the work that I do. So I do use other libraries in certain places to augment it. But for the most part, I tried to keep it purely the library. All the orchestra, by the way, is Jaeger. And I wanted to make that as a point to show you guys how good it is. Anyway, so if I take off the reverb that I had, 1 second. So if I take off the reverb and we just listen to it dry. with the reverb on. And that's one thing that I actually enjoy about some of these libraries. So Jaeger is what I would consider a layering library. Most people, when they get started with orchestral libraries, they tend not to jump on libraries like Jaeger straight away. Jaeger is a library that comes down the line once you already have a bunch of things. For example, you'll need Contact 5 full player in order to use this. So you'll already have the Contact factory bank. And Jaeger, when it's dry, because like I mentioned at the beginning, a lot of libraries are doing the kind of verby, big size things. I actually find that libraries like Jaeger are extremely useful for layering, because what they do is they kind of act as almost a close mic. If that makes sense. It's like the definition of the section. So even if you're using a library like Metropolis Arc 1 or, Spitfire's Albion 1 or something like that, you can use this, those libraries being ensemble, you can use this, which has the sections, to define the section. So you can have them doubling the parts so that you get that kind of definition of the actual string parts playing their own section, which is really useful. In this example of this track, though, it's just purely, it's purely the library by itself. And like I mentioned, one of the things I like about it is it can do these fast parts really, really well because it's dry. And that's worth mentioning here as well. This library has like some of the best legatos I've ever heard in a library. And, I've spoken to the developers about it. And it really does come down to recording multiple, firstly, listening to how the legato transition sounds, and then actually fixing it if it sounds shit, but then adding multiple versions of it. So as you can hear up here, we have the high string. Now, I always play these in a bit loose and record them as such, because what I actually do is I layer them a lot of the time, like melody lines like that. I think we actually have that layered in the voice down here. And when you kind of have them off each other, and you know what I mean? Like you kind of get it, and then you have like your counter melody on the brass. So yeah, I could tidy up that legato line, but sometimes I actually like leaving it a little bit kind of all over the place. And the cool thing about the legato is it actually sounds, because it sounds, the legato transitions sound so good, I can kind of just let it go out of time, because that's... You know what I mean? Because the legato transition work, it doesn't sound like I've played it out of time or I've played it wrong. It feels as though that's just how it was played, So that's cool. I absolutely love the legato on that. So one thing to mention is when I wrote this track, we were actually having, as I mentioned earlier on the live stream, the reason that this video is coming out later is because I gave them an opportunity to fix what I was having. I was having CPU spikes, and a lot of it was happening when I was playing multiple notes together. So, for example, like this section here, which, as you can hear, is fine now. But we were having a problem with that. So a lot of the patches I loaded in, you'll see they have no articulations like these ones here. So let me just quickly show you how that looks. You see, when you go into the bank, you have the option of doing individual patches. So I actually loaded in the spiccatos because I was trying to, at the time, figure out why I was getting CPU spikes. And I thought it might have been something to do with a key switch issue, but it wasn't. It was something to do with, I don't know, start times or some bullshit like that. But what you can do is load in an instrument that has all the key switches. And this is a little thing, but I'm gonna mention it because I'm really glad they did it, is they actually put what the key switch is on the front. Some developers put I think Spitfire do it. They put the key switch, they put like the option for a key switch. In fact, let me double check that before I get in more trouble with Spitfire. Let me take a quick look. Like they'll put the key switch, but not. Yeah, I was right. They put the key switch, but not the CC value. You know what I mean? They don't tell you what key it is. I mean, you can look down and figure it out, but there's something to be said about, having it written on the thing. Anyway, so that's why a lot of these patches are loaded in like that. So one of the cool things, and we'll go down to the brass to show this, and one of the cool things I really like, particularly in the brass, is that the key switches between sustain and short are almost seamless. And how should I explain that? So sometimes when you have libraries where they have like brass, for example. Okay, let me talk about brass in general. So like when you have brass, you can do lines that are like ba ba da ba 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 da ba 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 ba, which is long, should a short, 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 long, should a short, short. And what a lot of libraries have is their sustain doesn't seem to have, for whatever reason, the kind of bite that the short note has. So if you're going ba 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 ba, you get ba 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 mwah, ba 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 mwah. You get this kind of soft, build into the note. Whereas these ones, you know what I mean? Like if you hit the right, you can see like, God, what is this MIDI programming here? Jesus. You see, if you're hitting the note hard, you get. So you can hear this one is actually a bit soft. So if I turn that up, oh God, the MIDI info is going everywhere. If I turn that one up, you'll actually get a sharper attack there. That random note there. Let me just. Oh, Jesus. Cubase being Cubase. There we go. So you can get things like that. I think at one point I do like this trumpet line, and I was just like, let's just leave it on the shorts. Doesn't even make sense as a line, but in the track it kind of worked. So I look at this. This this isn't good trumpet writing, but I liked it in the track. It doesn't make sense, but in the. So you see, when I write, so I was trained as a singer. A lot of you know this, and some of you don't. I was trained as a singer. So when I'm writing melody lines, the vowel I use when I'm coming up with the melody determines how it's going to sound. And it used to be when I would write brass, I would use the vowel L, like la, 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 because the transition between short and long wasn't very good. So I would have to compensate for the fact that melodies couldn't do that. But with libraries like this, like Jaeger, these kind of dry libraries, it's not dry, but these kind of more focused libraries where you can have the sharp lines. I can change the vowel to ba, which sounds silly, but it allows me to go ba 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 ba. As you can hear, that line is very much a ba rather than a la. You see, so that's one of the things that libraries like this allow me to do. And while whilst the libraries by Orchestral Tools and Spitfire are great, that like in some places in them, the transitions between the two don't work as clearly. And because they are usually ensemble libraries, having this option here means that I could layer like the ba 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 libraries with this, and you get the focus of that note, and it will sound cool. At least I like to think so. even just lines like that, you see where I'm going, ba 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 ba. And as you can hear, it's got a very cool royal sound when you layer it together. Like you can see I've voiced it very, very widely. Like this is a very brassy kind of, very wide. And you can see down the bottom here, the key switches. So if we just highlight that, this is the trumpet. So I'll just highlight the trumpet by itself. You can see the key switches here. So we're going between C0, D0, and C0. So we can actually come over and take a look at the trumpet. So C0 is our legato. And then C sharp 0 is like sustained. So, so you can play. You can play things like that. Staccatissimo is like the really short. Staccato is just like. And then Porto is this. It's like a marcato kind of. And I imagine I could have used, instead of these, I could have used the Porto like that. So let's listen to the difference. So let's listen to that. And now we'll try it again with the sustain. So one thing I noticed is that straight away is that the Porto is based on velocity. So I'd have to turn those up. Whereas if we have it on sustain, I mean, I could have done it that way because the lines aren't, they're not actually sustained lines. Whereas if I do this on legato, these lines are going to be legato between themselves. So they're actually, you're actually going to get the legato transition, but it will also be controlled by the modulation down here. So. Which I think I prefer. So, for example, that line there, like this note here, could work as a thing because I want ba ba rather than ba wah. So it's a cool to have those options. I love it. So the percussion is an interesting part. So the percussion does sound good, but I am very particular about my percussion. So I didn't actually I used a lot of Spitfire Hans Zimmer percussion for this track, but I did manage to load in some Grand Casa. So I will go over the percussion with you. Don't worry. So this is just the percussion setup that I have. But so what are we on? So 6, 7, and 8. So mostly I was using it as auxiliary percussion, but let's take a listen. So we had, we had some big. I had it as like the focus. You know what I mean? So if we put that back in. And then if I take it out. And it goes back to what I was saying about the orchestral things. I would totally use this library now as a layering library. One of the things that this is doing well with the percussion. So percussion for me is how I personally fill out a mix. Like I have the wide verby percussion going on, but the Jaeger gives me the opportunity to add a different sound, but the focus of the sound. So as you can hear, oh God, are we crashing? No, we're not. So if you listen again, when I bring in particularly number 8, listen to how the definition of the drums comes back. So that's what I do there. But let's take a listen to the ones I didn't load. You know, being as though we're here. And I couldn't tell what the DC and non-DC were. So let's go. What did I load up? I loaded up DC before. So Piatti, I think I actually may have used some Piatti. Let's take a look. In the perk extra, I did. So we used the Piatti, but I also used some Cineperk Orchestral. I used a bit of everything. You see, I told you I'm a perk whore. Right, so let's take a listen. So we got the Piatti on them. So we got like here we go, the Piatti here. Yeah, doing basically our downbeats. Let's take a look at the keys though. I need to remember to leave this untransposed. There we go. So, it would have been cool if we had a swell, but I guess we can. But that's why I used the, the orchestral, the Cineperk orchestral swell, and then into and they actually blend really well, which is great. I guess a Piatti is just a Piatti. I always want to say Patty because of Mike Patty Cine Samples. Right, so what did we load? So we'll load in some snares. Let's take a listen to those. So we'll go with the snare ensemble high. Oh, apparently the DC equals distance corrected, which gives it a punchier sound, which is actually pretty cool. So what would the line be here? Oh, we got a delay. Okay, let's just bring one of these down onto it. Oh wow, that is offbeat, sir. That is offbeat. By how much? So it looks like we're, what, 80 off? So that's one thing about the library worth mentioning, is they actually did a lot of sample start-off time. So some libraries, this is hard to explain. So if you think of the transient of a drum, like just that, the actual part where the drum hits, what a lot of sample libraries do now, particularly like in things like spiccato strings or legatos, is they include the brief bit before the peak of the transient. So a lot of the older libraries seem to kind of cut at the transient so that you would be in time, right? So so that all the string notes when you quantized were on the beat. You quantize, you cut the sample at the transient, right? At the peak of the transient. But what libraries do now is they actually include like 80, usually like 50 to 80 kind of milliseconds before you get to the peak, in order for you to get all the air and all the things that lead into that note, particularly strings, because they kind of hit the thing before you get to the peak. Anyway, I think in this one it's like 125, but I found that around 80 kind of blends. And the cool thing, again, with all of the parts of this library is they're all very punchy. So here we go, taiko. So we've got some high taikos. So this is a good point to mention the UI. So as you can see, it has a big knob, which is always a bold claim from anyone. But anyway, it has the big knob, which we've seen in other Audio Imperia libraries, and as well as other other companies and stuff. And the big knob idea is essentially it's a macro. So this knob controls various other parameters, and it looks like we jump in here. So this actually took me a while because one of the things, like, I was trying to figure it out, and I was like, okay, lo-fi. Okay, so if we want, let's say, the noise color to be, let's just put that on a loop. This looks like that Ableton Live Shreds video that I posted. And it took me a while to figure out, because like I was going to, you know, the compressor, and I was like, why isn't it working? And it's this little fucking button here. So you have to remember to turn on the little buttons. Let's get like a punchy thing. Let's get them transients in there. I mean, like, so for example, that is basically just using a compressor. So if we listen, that'll just make it sound clickier and mixed. So, you know, like, but you can also add things, you know, if you want to get particularly sound designy, you know, add things like flange. Just put that back on the thing. Getting a little bit of CPU spikes here, and I can't tell if that's the library or just because I'm streaming, but it didn't seem to happen when I was doing it off stream. So I'm going to put that down to streaming. You know, and you could probably set this up so that interesting. Now that seems to be stuck on. Okay, I'm not sure what I'm doing wrong there, but the amount seems correct. So I'm doing something wrong, clearly, but that isn't hooking to the knob. Let's try a rotator. Interesting. These effects seem to be just coming on. So either that's a bug or I'm doing it wrong, but essentially that is how you would usually connect them. They also have the effects panel here. So, you know, we can do things like volume sequencing. But first, let me turn off that big knob rotator. So we can put this like a, you know, if we wanted like a, which could work. You know, if you wanted to make some weirdness, you know, you have the option to. Usually these are better for sound design things, and there is a whole sound design aspect to the library where this would be a hell of a lot more useful, but I'm just showing you for the point of example right now. So here we have our inserts and sends, you know, so all that, you know, compression. So we'll put our threshold like down here. We'll do like a silly one. Again, like if you wanted to get some weird kind of pokey, get some weird creative effects going there. But right. So what else we got? We got distortion. Again, most of these effects are just going to be purely for. Yeah, most of these are going to be for the sound design part, which we'll briefly cover. One of the things I'll just mention this. This does have a comprehensive, you know, a comprehensive sound design section to it, which I will briefly cover, but not go too in depth for, because as many of you know, I own a sound design sample library, and so anything I say will be torn to shreds. So you know, I always, as a point. Don't go into those in too much depth. But now I want to talk about my favorite part of the library. Holy fucking shit. Right? Just What the fuck? Okay, so most of you know that one of the most difficult things to sample is the human voice correctly, other than in phrases. Because we all, it's like the uncanny valley. We all understand voice. We all understand how the human voice sounds. So when someone tries to sample human voice, we can hear when it's wrong. That even if it sounds great, we can hear when it's like a human doesn't sound like that. Now this is insane. Is it what, like, yes. So that's something, this is actually a discussion I've been having with people. This voice to me is worth the price of admission alone, simply because there is nothing else currently which does that well. And it's hard to explain. It's usually I would use a phrase library. Many of you have seen me use things like Heaviosity's Vocalese before, because it adds that kind of, it adds, female voice is like a staple of, kind of emotional epic music. But like if I just put this in with the strings, for example. Like, oh my God. Like this would trip up most libraries. You know what I mean? Like there's something about the transitions, like parts like this here, or this. The transition would sound weird. It's insane. Like I don't understand why more aren't like it. I had a similar reaction to Fluffy Audio's Dominus, which is the first choir library that sounds like humans singing together. And it's not only that. That's not the only reason that's good. The other reason is it's actually an amazing fucking voice. And one thing that like I think they did on purpose, but like is the only kind of negative I feel about it is the range. The range feels like the singer's actual range. So we don't get up past like an F. Oh no, an F sharp. So up here we kind of if you've got a higher melody. So you have F sharp to F sharp, which is a big range. You get 2 octaves. Right. Worth mentioning here is I have a shitload of effects on it, so I'm going to turn it off so you can actually hear what it sounds like. Now that should make it even more like. Usually you can hide a negative aspect of something with reverb, right? You can hide the transitions. But that still sounds like someone in a booth singing. I don't get how it works. And I wish I did, because I would make something similar and compete. I think I have yeah. Like it's not hiding anything. like one of my little tips is a bit of black hole on the singer, and boom, you've got. And yeah, just when she comes in, like here in this section here, you can't hear it singing. It's not the focus, but just the tone of it is enough to carry the line. Now, if I play that line without her. It's insane how much that voice brings to it. And like I say, I used to use things like Vocalese, which I'll quickly show you what that is, because it is a great library. I'm not gonna deny that. Jesus, first world problems. It's in here somewhere. Where the fuck are you? I've probably gone past it already. Jesus. Where is it? Oh, it's right there. So I used to use this, which is, so we're on track 3. Which is phrases, right? But now we can be like. Worth mentioning is so far I've only been playing the R, right? So there's sustained R. So if you want to do like, if you want to do that, I personally would just use a choir library for that. But they also have oo. Or everybody keep. So a lot of people are saying that this is the singer of choice for Thomas Bergerson, which makes me want to. She doesn't go higher than that, and it seems to me as though they've recorded. So there's R, oo, and and it seems like they're the dynamic layers. So if you want soft, like and quiet, you go because even at the top dynamic, and then if you want to get a bit louder, and then louder is the R. I love sustained ums, by the way. Beautiful fucking tail. I probably wouldn't use the R sustain bit. People are asking about the reverb in the chat room. So I always use my reverbs as inserts. A lot of people say that's incorrect and you should use sends, but I always find that when I'm using a reverb, it's because I'm wanting to place someone in a room. When you use a send, you have a full dry signal and you're adding the tail of that effect onto your dry signal. Whereas when you have as an insert, usually you have a dry dial, so you can actually turn down the amount of dry there is. So you can actually overlap the dry signal with the wet signal in a more pleasing fashion, in my opinion. So I always use things like black hole and stuff and then mess with the mix dial. That's just how I get those kinds of tones. I did actually use some of the sound design here. So they've got some cool drones. Let's take a listen to those. It's a really nice kind of... I actually like the way... I kind of like the way they did this. Actually, it could have gone either way. So there's two different ways of doing things like this. You can either... so as you can see down at the bottom here, you can either have all your notes be different sounds. This is very common in things like ADO's libraries, you know, like their rhythmic auras. The key that you push is a different note. Is a different instrument, and then you can change the pitch down here. Now, depending on how many things you have, it could work both ways. Another way of doing it is to have. Excuse me. Another way you could do it is you can have each drone as an individual patch, and then you can actually play, you know, chords and melodies and things like that. Or you have all your different patches as the key switch, and then, you know, you use this, you know, so like I changed to drone 1, for example, down here, and then play a note, you know, play chords or whatever. Oh shit, I forgot what key we're in. What key are we in? Lord have mercy. What does this look like? C. Let's go with C just in case. And so, yeah, let me... They are very cool sounding. And it's a cool way to, like, the way they've done it here is it's a cool way to actually try different ones together. I think I prefer it this way. The only problem with this is if you want to, you know, if you want to have your drones go along with the harmony, you know, usually they're so slow with the attack. That would be a, you know, unless I set the sample start like in. But yeah, having it this way allows you to kind of layer them up. So instead of just having one drone that you can have across multiple notes, you could say, okay, this one needs some more body, so let me try some others against it. Okay, so we've got some bass coming in there. You know, we're getting down to the depths. The depths of hell. And as you can see on the front panel here, we have like I was using the sample start here. You can see that's actually moving where you start. So instead of, you know, some of these will have like a fade in just naturally in them, like this one. Say I wanted to start this loud part here. You have that option, and then of course attack release. So if I wanted it to start instantly. You can do some fun things that way. Usually with drones though, you want a slower start. So that's a cool option. Of course you can pan, and we've already gone over the big knob. And then in the effects unit here, so let's do the so we're going to lock this to the tempo. So now, like, if we wanted, we could. We don't need two of them on. And then, like, for panning, let's change this up to like 16 steps or something. Let's make it 8. So like we could go like left, right, bigger left, bigger right, big full left, full right, little left, little right. And then the filter. You know, we could do like a little baba da baba da baba da baba da baba da baba. One of my favorite rhythms. We'll set that up to 16ths as well. You know, just basically if you wanted to add some like rhythmic interest and things like that, you can do that with the step modulators there. And then of course you have your inserts. Should you want to just fuck the system. It's really awesome. They do have Brahms and whoosh bangs and all of the like, but like as I mentioned, for reasons we won't go into those, but you know, I do recommend some of the other streamers for those. So let's take a listen to some of these instruments by themselves. So the first strings, let's break down. Let's have a listen to how they sound. So this is the spiccato. Yeah. What? No, you should be up there, sir. So we've got some good dynamic range in these. Let's do like a ramp from really soft to really loud. Decent range. This one I actually set way too low. Hang on. As you can see, I went full power. But now if we do that like, but really chill. So you see that it's got some decent range, so let's take a listen. One of the things that actually surprised me about this one, which I really like, is the violas sound really good. Violas, for some reason, are usually quite crappy. You know, it's got a cool... And that's another thing, like sometimes with libraries, let me just bring in the cello spiccatos as well. For some reason, in some libraries, the violas never quite, they never quite sit with the rest of the orchestra. Like the tone of them feels odd. These ones sit in there, in the groove. You know what I mean? They kind of sit in the vibe. see, they kind of sit right in there. And if I put the top line over the top, you'll feel that it kind of fills out that kind of section. You see, I've kind of written almost a little bit crossed over. If you listen like it sits. And that's one thing I actually really like about it. The short spiccatos are actually really crunchy. So we actually have what would be interesting now is if I actually load up I can show the articulations of each. Let's do that. So strings, let's replace, wait, what am I doing here? Okay. So we may end up with clicks and pops because I forgot to update my quick menu with the 1.1, but whatever. Doesn't matter for now. And as I mentioned earlier, the legatos are amazing. I'm not sure what they did, but they've definitely really taken time with them. So of course we have like sustains, you know. So we just got like this. It's got a great tone. Yeah. I don't use tremolo much. I should really get into it. It's very icy, the tremolos on these high strings. If we've got any fans of like the Evo grids from Spitfire, it's a very similar tone. One thing I noticed is that the sustain pedal doesn't work, so I can't do any of my, you know, holding it. The spiccatos we've heard to death, you know, obviously. Yeah, we may get clicks and pops because I'm not using the updated one because I'm an idiot. But yeah, staccato, obviously. And then Porto. Cool vibe. And then we got cold leg no. I wonder what happens if we play like a... I want to hear the line. I want to hear it. Oh, sounds moist. And then Bartoks, which is like a pluck. Like a... Oh God, imagine the speed you'd have to go to pick that. Okay, let's move down to the viola. Dun, 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 dun. If you keep hearing screaming in the background, my wife is playing video games. I can only apologize. Okay, so viola. Now they don't actually have viola legato for some reason. It does have the beautiful tone raticism to the tremolo. That's a really cool bed, actually. And of course, it's worth mentioning here that we do actually have control of the mic positions. So we can turn off the main one. Let's put on the spot mic. The deck tree. Wide mic. And far mic. So if you wanted to, you can program your own. I'm actually quite happy with the full mix. It's very, very clear and enunciated, and of course spiccato. You've got to play the. Oh wait. Oh, the delay is killing me. And the staccatos are obviously... Porto. Cold legs, Bartok. I always want them to be more thuddy. The cellos, the cellos I love. Okay, we actually have the cello loaded somewhere else. Yeah, we do. There it is, number 6. So let's take a listen to the cello. So the cello does actually have legato, and it's really good. Okay, that's not what I expected. Play an octave down. Fuck. Fuck, I can't play it, whatever. Just as a little reason, I'm a bad enough player as it is, but when I stream, there's like I don't know, it must be like 100 millisecond delay and it's like having one of those jammers, if you've ever used them, when you hear your own voice and you speak into like your phone and it delays your voice by a few milliseconds and you start talking like this. Oh, God. Beautiful sound. And of course, you know, sustains. Oh, I accidentally changed over to Porto there, but you didn't notice. And then we have tremolo. Tremolos on cellos and basses always sound pretty nasty. I like it. Those highs. I don't know why, but whenever I think of a cello player doing a tremolo, I always imagine Tina Guo, you know, because she gets very active when she does those kinds of things. So I just imagine an entire section of Tina Guo doing the flip hair back thing. You know, giving it some welly. You know, like... Oh, it doesn't go down that low. There we go, staccatos. Porto, of course. Beautiful. Cold legs. And Bartoks. Bartoks sounds like something else. So a good little tip, by the way, is Bartoks picks. These ones are usually pretty good at layering with percussion. So like if I just solo this for a second, come to this section. Or this section, whatever. They're good at downbeats. They're really good at accenting downbeats. That's a little tip for everybody. Yeah, these Bartoks kind of really aggressive picks. very, very useful. That's one of the things that actually helped me with my accents. Not accents as in, "Hey laddie," not like a Scottish accent. Nothing like that. Right, and then, of course, we got the double basses wedged in here somewhere. Where are you, bastards? There we go. This is the 1.1 update, so this one is actually updated. Number 4. There we go. So they have sustains. Now, the tone of these aren't my favorite. They're too, for me, they're too smeary. But a lot of the time, they are just holding down the bottom end. These are obviously very good. Oh, God. The attack on that. It's just in places it seems a little rough. They sound great, but like the tone of them is like a like if you listen for the it's too nasal. Of course, I can fix that with EQ, but usually I just go somewhere else first. Staccato's over. Cold legs off. The cold legs sound weaker than the... Holy fuck! Maybe calm it, boys. maybe we should put a limiter on those. Okay, let me turn off my reverb. They sound compressed to fuck. Have I got a compressor on? I do. Fuck, I'm so sorry. There was a compressor on. Jesus. I apologize. I wasn't expecting that. Anyway. Absolutely awesome. Awesome tone. Let me change that back to spiccato. I'm just going to put all these back on spiccato in case we want to demonstrate something. Although they're not on 1.1, so we're in danger probably of spikes. Anyway, so let's go listen to the brass down here. So, like, go away, percussion. You weren't invited. We're stuck on like shorts for some reason. Now, some people find the brass tone of this like they don't like it. I actually really like it. It's a very noble kind of brass sound when you play like these wide, these wide So let's take a listen to these parts individually. One thing I noticed about these libraries, by the way, this library in particular, is it doesn't seem to be pre-panned much. So, like, if I play this, it's all coming quite down. So I probably put the trumpets like slightly off to there, French horns off to the right. We'll put the trombones over on the right as well. So it'd be more like a... Yeah, a lot of libraries these days come pre-panned. This one seems to be quite down the middle, so I tend to do a lot of panning. Are these ones pre-panned? Let me... Although I've changed all the instruments. Yeah, so even the strings aren't panned. So I would have to go in and do those, you know, like strings over there, violas. Let's put them a bit on the left. Cello's a bit on the right. Double bass is quite far on the right. Yeah, so probably pan it a bit like that. Anyway, back to the brass. So what are we on? Trumpets. So the trumpets, I'm actually using quite a few of the articulations just to do the line. So for example, I could make this one a porto and then go back to the sustain. Didn't like that. Okay, so maybe we need to actually cut that off like that. And then we'll make this one here. We'll make these two porto as well. In fact, we'll make this one staccato. Dun, dun. And then we'll make this one here be porto. So sustain, staccato, porto, spiccato. That one could probably be staccato, right? Yeah. This one definitely didn't want to be. Again, quite good dynamics on the brass as well. Let's do like a full-on loud to nothing and then back to loud. So it's like... So you've heard obviously all the instruments in that one. It's got a cool vibe. Sustain's obviously for staccatissimo for the... Although, like the bam. Staccato for the big bam, and then porto for the... Okay, cool. Right, so let's move over to the French ones. Right, what we got? So the French horns, we already did the legato, which is... There's that one of the things I actually like is when you push it up into the like the you know, the full triple F, you get some of the breaking sound. You know, that kind of. Sustains on horns are usually quite cool. Staccatissimo. Fucking delay. Staccato, you know, you're big. Porto. Nice big and then of course like your effects. Should you choose to actually throw in you know, some of those. So the tubas I actually like this trombones rather, I like the sound of. Again, some people were complaining about these. I like them because they are good ba-ba-ba sounds. They've got a good bite to them, you know? Now, I wonder if I change like, what we got, D1. So if I actually make like this note here a staccato, see what it changes. And that's what I mean about the thing that this one does really well is at the higher ranges, the staccatos come in really nicely. And then at the softer ones, they come in really gently, you know? They come down quite low as well. Obviously, I'd be wanting to. Cool, and then staccatos are just but there's no legato there's no legato in this one, which is a shame because I would have enjoyed some of those like slides, but you know, alas, it is not to be. So now we have the tuba. I think I like the tuba. That, sir, is not a tuba. It's good at just holding, like it's two tubas and they're good at just holding down the bass. You know, like we've got it going on here. It's good at holding down that bottom end. probably have that as a low bum, bada bum. Probably sounds shit. That line sounds really bad by itself. Hang on, let me just show you it again. Like if I put that. It makes sense with the thing. Like if I put it with the thing, it'll make more sense. But you see how easy it is. It's much easier to actually get those kind of bam, bada bam, which is actually kind of what the brass players do. Brass players do sit there and hold lots of long sustains, which is how I used to write for brass because the samples would allow me to go that far. And I, as a composer, I've always understood that I am the music I write. If I want to write the best music I can, it's best to treat samples as samples. They can do things that live players can't do, but at the same time, they can't do things that live players can do. So like it used to be doing a line like dam, bada bam, 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 like obviously not the brr too much, but, being able to use the ba syllable when I'm writing music in my head, bam, 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 used to be difficult to do convincingly. And I feel like I get rid of it. Bam, 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 bada bam. That used to be more difficult to actually do, in terms of the sample library. So I wouldn't write that way. However, it's been quite an awakening for me. With the thing. So it actually changed, like libraries like this, which are becoming better, particularly with the, I think it's consistency that's the key. So you used to, like I mentioned earlier, you wouldn't be able to write that way because the sustain in a ba 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 line would normally be the weak link. So it'd be like ba 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 wah, ba 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 wah, ba 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 wah wah. Like they would have a slower attack. Whereas it feels like nowadays they're kind of recording them with these kinds of, particularly things like Jaeger, which feel. If anybody's ever seen that chart I did of sample libraries from soft to epic, it like fits in around that kind of symphobia level where it's on the epic side of things, but it's not like Metropolis Arc 3 where it's trying to, blow your fucking head off. It's kind of focused and clear. And because of that, with the sustains and things like that, it feels like they didn't mind giving the sustains more attack on the higher end. I don't know why other libraries don't do that, but like, you find with some other libraries that they give the same sustain to the low dynamic as they do to the high dynamic. So when you do a low dynamic, you get a kind of, but when you do it on the high one, you get like a, which I'm sure it does do. But when you're writing, you can't write lines like, because that would have been bam, 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 wham, which just sounds shit. It sounds shit layered and it sounds shit as it is. But because I have this, now I can actually use this as the focal layer in order to build up that whole section, which is awesome. So yeah, that's those. And that section again. And again, I say again and again a lot. As you can see, like if you do these big wide brass parts, it sounds so fucking just the big fucking major chords. So while people may not like the tone for everything, obviously that sounded different because I've changed all the instruments in the process of looking at the library. So yeah, in conclusion, who is this library for? So this library, I would say, like if you're just getting started out, this one may be a tad too focused for you. And the price limit, I believe it's 600 either dollars or euros. One is more expensive than the other there, which is expensive for a library. But I feel like this is aimed at composers who are already in a working tier. So you see, the thing with music is like music composition is it's actually beneficial in some situations to have a library which isn't mainstream. So like there used to be times like there used to be a library called Symphobia, which at the time I believe cost like $1,200 or something like that. And the cool thing about it is not cool thing, but one of the aspects of the price being that high is the people who could afford it had like an advantage, if that makes sense. They had something which sounded amazing, but not everybody had access to because of the price. So it kind of priced out like the lower tier, so you could kind of feel that investment on the higher end, which is decent. I don't mind it. Like this, for example, like again, disclaimer, I got this one as a review copy. So I didn't pay for this one, but I would absolutely pay for this one because it not because it's expensive, but because it's very clear and focused. And there aren't too many libraries which focus on that. The only other ones that come to mind immediately are LA scoring strings, which is here. And what else we got? And Sinner strings. I think Sinner strings is another one, which is clear and focused. Most libraries go for size, and they do that with the kind of hall that they record in. Spitfire, are very big proponents of this. Like they're very wet, and they're not, they're not very dry and aggressive, which makes it kind of difficult to use in the more epic things where like that kind of cleanliness and focus is very, very important for getting the big, clear sound. And so something like this, I would absolutely use. And I've actually been using it a lot recently for let me actually, no, let's do that later. But I've been using it a lot recently in I'm doing a like a trailer album for Epic Score while at the same time, doing my new Nomad album. And this has become like the replacement to LA scoring strings for me. So I realized that my sound was getting a little tired because I do the same combinations of things like cinematic studio strings layered with LA scoring strings. So cinematic studio strings being like the sound of my string section, and then LA scoring strings being the focus, the thing that gives you that aggression and that kind of clarity. But Jaeger has actually taken over that because it's a smaller kind of focused sectional sound, which when layered with other things, I think kind of makes a grander whole. I've actually been trying it recently with Symphobia, like funnily enough, speaking of that, because Symphobia is an ensemble library, but then using Jaeger as the focus is very useful. So yes, while the price is high for hobbyists, I feel that like for the professionals who this is more aimed at, I think it's kind of appropriate considering the content you get, because you get a whole sound design sample library, which I didn't go into again, because I own a sound design sample library. So if I say a negative thing, the chaos of it going, of me saying something negative, I avoid that. That's why I don't do reviews of sound design sample libraries. But you also get a big percussion section, which we covered briefly. And you also get the orchestra and that vocal. That vocal is absolutely insane. And I'm hoping that all the other libraries that do vocals compete with this. I hope that they come out with libraries that are just as good. And then Audio Imperia can push again and make it even more realistic somehow. Like I say, Fluffy Audio's Dominus choir is like a bar setter for a sectional, that kind of Whitaker tone. It's amazing for that. But this has absolutely fucking nailed that. And it's always the funny thing because people say, like, oh, but you didn't pay for it, so you're not saying what you mean. Let me just play the fucking vocal and you tell me, I'll let you decide for yourself whether or not any other libraries are this good at doing these kinds of vocal legatos. I think the library speaks for itself. Like everything I say, and that's one of the reasons I never edit these videos is because you can see very clearly what I'm doing. And it can do like, where are we dynamically? Let's go to like this ending bit here. So let's pull up the strings and let's just pull this section here. Let's cut that there. And let's just mess with the dynamics quick. We are still in the conclusion. Hang on. So like we're like a kind of just mezzo forte. If we pull this down. It's got good dynamic range, which is exactly what you want for your focus library. You know what I mean? You can do the soft and delicate as well. So it's good. Like as professional composers, I think it's important you have libraries which cover your soft end, your epic end, and then you have things in the middle called what I call focus libraries. Libraries which you layer with those extremes to bring out the elements, right? So good soft libraries, for example, are things like Albion 1. Albion 1 is a very roomy sound, but it lacks focus in its spiccatos, in its brass and things like that. On the other end, you have things like orchestral tools on the epic end, like Metropolis Arc 1, which is recorded with massive sections and things, but it gets very, very big. So you don't have, like if you have a part of your song where it kind of needs to dial back a bit, you're fucked in that regard. That's where libraries like this come in, and they sit perfectly in the middle point. They're clean, they have focus, and they have dynamics. That's what's important for a layer library. And this, for me, is a perfect layer library. So if you are just starting out, if you bought this, you would be well off. You would have this would be a great starter library, but it may be out of the price of people just getting into it. However, if you are already a composer, I feel like this covers enough ground in that focus category of libraries, that kind of that you would put with any other library, regardless of the type of music. So if you're doing soft, it will bring the really good legatos of both the voice and the strings and the French horns. The French horns have got good legato, and the trumpets, actually. You'll be bringing those as focus elements for that. Whereas if you're doing like the big epic stuff, there is enough clarity and sectional size. Obviously, you have to pan it yourself, but you can feel the sections that if you layer it with ensemble libraries, which are good at going big, like Symphobia or Metropolis Arc, you are getting the definition. It's like adding another close mic to the epic libraries. So it fits perfectly within those two worlds. And so yes, like people in my chat room are asking whether it would fit well with Albion 1. It would fit with Albion 1 perfectly. It would fit with Metropolis Arc 1 perfectly. And I think that's why this is valuable to me personally, because it will fill in that mid ground that you would struggle with earlier. Like I say, I used to use LA scoring strings, and I still do, because LA scoring strings has a really aggressive, dry spiccato sound. It's really good at making the spiccatos. But this, like Jaeger, covers the spiccato zone, but it also has amazing legatos. The legatos in LA scoring strings are great, but these are on another level. Like I mentioned earlier, there's something about the transitions. Why is that not? Okay, we need to figure out why. Oh, yes, because I'm on the fucking brass. I'm on the brass. Like the legato transitions of the strings are. It's incredibly realistic sounding legatos. I think that's probably my conclusion. It may be out of reach for many hobbyists, but I feel like this is focused at professional composers as that perfect mid ground for your compositional option, because you have your extremes when you write. And then you need to be covered perfectly in that midsection for when your pieces of music go past that. Because when you're writing soft music, there are times you need to go loud. That's where this comes in. There are times when you're doing the big epic when you need the focus, but you also need to bring it down a bit. That's where this comes in. If you need to layer in vocals, it's got you covered. If you need some more focus in your percussion, it's got you covered. If you need some sound design, it's got you covered. Like, that's why this library, I think, is worth the price of admission, because it's got you covered. It's one of those kinds of libraries. If you are just getting started out, like I mentioned, you may be better off with something like an Albion 1, which is cheaper, but at the same time, it's ensemble based, so you're not getting access to the individual sections. You're restricted somewhat to what you've got. But if you're already working and you feel like you need a library that kind of bridges the gap between your two extremes, I feel like this is a perfect place to go. I've been absolutely blown away by it. As you can see, the piece of music I wrote was very much determined by the options I had available to me from the library. If I didn't have the ability to do the ba 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 ba, I wouldn't have written that way. But this gave me the option, and so all those ba ba bas that have been building up within me for the past few years all came flying out in one epic cacophony of brass sounds. Anyway, so yeah, that's my brief overview of Audio Imperia's Jaeger, now at version 1.1, as you can see here. So if any of you were having CPU spikes or you've seen that around the internet, that has actually been fixed, which is brilliant. I absolutely love it. I think it's an amazing mid-ground, it's got you covered layer library. I think it's aimed at professionals. If you want to buy this as your starter library, though, you will be fine. You'll actually be better than fine. You're going to be well covered. I think it's worth what they're asking. And a high price usually means that only so many people have it. So if tone is important to you, if you're very protective of your tone, there will be less people using it, which can be a positive for some people. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this overview video today. If you're watching on the live stream, we will be continuing after this video, so do stick around. If you're watching this on YouTube, I hope you enjoyed the video today. If you enjoyed the video and you want to see more, make sure to check out the channel and subscribe and all that nonsense down below. Like I say, if you're watching on the live stream, if you're watching this on YouTube, I do these videos with a live chat, which I keep referencing every now and again. If you're wondering, I'm not actually going crazy and talking to myself. There are people talking to me as we do this. If you want to get involved on that, that's on twitch.tv/hybrid2. That's where you can watch these being done live. And as always, I put out on Twitter whenever I'm going to go live. And you can find me on Twitter at H2Daniel. So H, then the number 2, then Daniel. Make sure to follow me there because I always post there. But if you're watching on YouTube, this is where we're going to end it. So thank you so much for watching. And I will see you all in the next one.